The first man's name was Kiki. He wore such little pants. His brother was the champion, but Kiki loved to dance. The second man was Choo-Choo, a master of romance. He loved the damsel in distress, but not as much as dance. And then one day it happened. They went off to the world. They went on to a journey, idolized by the boys and girls. They learned so many lessons in all the foreign lands. But no matter where they wound up, they never stopped the dance. One day inside the station, in Amsterdam perchance, the men were dancing side by the man with the crooked glance. They turned to face each other. It was just happenstance that these two men would meet that day and do that fateful dance. Wow, you can really dance. Wow, you can really dance. He went. They said, we've both been dancing all this time. What a coincidence. And then they danced together like no one's danced before. The diplomats were dancing, they cancelled all of the war. No more. The whole world celebrated, was no more violence. And all because these men crossed paths. What a coincidence! Dance, 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 dance. Let's dance.
Do you genuinely think you are the best female breaker in Australia?
Well, I think my record speaks to that.
Is there any merit in those criticisms?
It is really sad to hear those criticisms, and I am very sorry for the backlash that the community has experienced, but I can't control how people react.
Australian journalists running after you while you're walking down the street, chasing you, asking you these questions. It must have been unlike anything you've ever experienced before. What was that moment like?
That was really wild. These people are chasing me. What do I do? But that really did put me in a state of panic.
Don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill on the Senator Lydia Thorpe contribution. We saw it at the end of our videotape compilation. Interjections that included, give us a treaty, we want treaty in this country, it's not your land, it's not your land, you're not my king. Was this anticipated?
Well, I don't have any more insight than you do, Greg, into what is in the minds of other senators or other members. But I thought that behaviour was pretty inappropriate. I think it alienated a lot of people, and I think most of the Australian public expect that their members and senators behave with dignity, especially at these formal state occasions.
Would there be any sanction worth contemplating, particularly by the other place, the Senate? You're not a member there, obviously, but would that be worthy of examination in your view?
Well, I can't speak for the Senate. They are in charge of their own members and their own disciplinary procedures. But I think really what I hope is that this doesn't detract from the fact that it was an incredibly warm reception for the King and the Queen. There was clearly a lot of people in the room who were really honoured to have been invited to that very special occasion. As you said, the first time that we've had a King of Australia, in fact, visit Australia. And what we saw in the King's remarks were his warm affection for this country, a country that he came here as a student, he's visited 17 times, and I think he really went out of his way not just to talk about the causes that were important to him, such as climate change, but also to talk about his great appreciation of the respect that First Nations Australians have shown him on those visits.
This is the King's 17th visit to Australia, obviously the first as head of state. He's been undergoing cancer treatment. It's been a slimmed down schedule, we're told, for his tour of Australia before he goes on to that CHOGM meeting, which will be held in Samoa. But he certainly packed a lot into today. He had this formal reception inside. It wasn't a sit-down lunch, rather. Hundreds of dignitaries, including former Prime Minister Tony Abbott, we saw there John Howard as well, alongside a whole series of other Australian identities in the room for the King's speech. He speaks so warmly and fondly of his time here in Australia. He clearly has such affection for this country, but as well, he's continuing his advocacy for the environment and, crucially, for climate change, making it clear he wants to see countries like Australia continue to do more.
Life here has always entailed these extremities of survival and endurance. Yet in their magnitude and ferocity, as well as their frequency, they are new. The regular roll of unprecedented events is an unmistakable sign of climate change, to which Australia is so particularly vulnerable. This is why Australia's international leadership on global initiatives to protect our climate and biodiversity is of such absolute and critical importance.
It was echoing a sentiment we'd heard just minutes earlier from Prime Minister Albanese in his address, praising the King's role on the world stage in pushing for more to be done to reduce emissions. A separate and different tone from Opposition Leader Peter Dutton in his address, praising the importance of Britain's institutions in Australia's system of government.
Your abiding duty to all that has been built on the foundations of tradition is balanced by a great responsibility to the future, both its serious challenges and its exciting possibilities. You have long apprehended the grave reality of climate change. You take seriously the threat that it represents, as well as the necessity and, crucially, the capability of humanity to take meaningful and effective action against it.
We should never take our British inheritance for granted. Australia has benefited from the stability of a democracy with the monarchy as our bedrock. Through times of peace and war, constitutional and parliamentary crises, good times and bad, Australians have known stability and have taken confidence knowing that there are better days ahead because our institutions are protected and underpinned by the independence and stoicism of the reigning monarch.
We've also had, Trudy, a slightly unusual circumstance. We'll just note there's a truck. I hope you're safe. Just tell me, blink twice if you need me to end and get out of the way.
All safe, Tom.
We have had this unusual situation.
This is Australian efficiency. They're packing up.
Yeah, the bollard. Well, they don't need the bollard, so apparently they're getting straight in the truck. This unusual situation where we have a senator, so Victorian Senator Lydia Thorpe, who has access to all these events because she's a federal MP, but security having to essentially escort her away twice today.
Yeah, the first, this happened off camera. We didn't see it immediately at the time, but Lydia Thorpe, the independent senator, former Green, was at the Australian War Memorial event. She tried to get close to the King where they were greeting the public, and you can see from the images is that she's kind of held at bay by a police officer there. It looked like she was trying to take off a piece of clothing as well. Then here inside Parliament House, all MPs and senators had been invited to attend this official reception. Lydia Thorpe waiting until the end of the King's speech there, and she yelled out a number of things, including "This is not your country, you are not my king," and then "F the colony." Have a look at how that played out. The King at the time didn't appear too phased, just speaking off the side with Prime Minister Albanese.
Give us our land back. Give us what you stole from us. Our bones, our skulls, our babies, our people. You destroyed our land. Give us the treaties. We want treaties in this country. You are a genocide. This is not your land. This is not your land. You are not my king. You are not our king.
You'd expect that the King and Queen would have been briefed ahead of time about the potential to see that sort of a lone protest, but one that was probably could have been predicted. I thought the King today, Tom, has gone out of his way to acknowledge Australia's Indigenous history. Everywhere they've gone, they've received a welcome to country. He, at the Australian War Memorial, had visited the dedicated memorial that's there for Australian soldiers who fought from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander backgrounds. He spoke about it in his speech as well, acknowledging Australia's Indigenous heritage. So an issue to be managed sensitively, but it seems like the King conscious that that could have come up today.
Yeah, he's been conscious of it in Australia, around the world, with the history of the Commonwealth and some of the African nations in particular as well, Pacific nations. So, yeah, certainly something been on his radar, famously shot at, albeit with blanks, on an Australian trip. So he's seen it all. Trudy, thank you. So that's Trudy McIntosh out the front of Parliament House. We'll have more on that royal tour throughout the afternoon.
Good evening. Shoppers have been caught up in a frightening jewellery heist that sent a shopping centre in Melbourne's north into lockdown. A gang of armed thugs carried out the smash and grab just before lunchtime as brave staff fought back.
They struck in seconds, shattering glass displays full of jewellery. A brash daylight robbery in front of shocked shoppers.
There was just a bunch of crashing and people screaming and running, and there was talks about guns.
Masked thieves stormed the busy Craigieburn Central Shopping Centre just after 11 this morning. One stood guard at the entrance as two others smashed their way through the cabinets at Payton's Place Jewellers, stuffing whatever they could into a bag.
They've produced what was described as two black iron bars, one of which was about half a metre long.
I grabbed my daughter and we hid in the storage room.
It didn't take long for the owners of the fourth generation store to react, one pulling out a heavy ring-sizing stick to chase the thieves to a waiting getaway car. Police say the offenders caused around $10,000 worth of damage to the display cabinets before taking off with at least another $5,000 worth of jewellery. To nearby customers, the noise of the smashing glass sounded like gunshots. Shops quick to lock down.
Everyone screaming, "Dads, come outside," and then we quickly shut the door.
All I could think of was just trying to hide my daughter so that if anything happens, she'd be safe.
Police are looking for 4 men seen fleeing in a dark Mazda SUV.
It was very, very dynamic and very quick.
And Sarah Jane Bell is in Craigieburn for us tonight. Sarah Jane, detectives are closing in on the thieves.
Beck, the attack was captured on CCTV that police will be reviewing. It's believed the offenders were young and slim. This part of the centre remained shut for more than 3.5 hours as the police investigation got underway, with some of those shops nearby choosing to stay closed for the rest of the day. As for Payton's Place Jewellers, well, they are hoping to reopen tomorrow once the clean-up is complete. Beck.
Sarah Jane Bell reporting live. Thank you.
Joining me now is the editor of the Courier Mail, Chris Jones. Chris, great to see you. It seems like voters aren't really pleased with either of the two main candidates here. But most interestingly, how have you seen the trend change?
G'day, Laura. Yeah, the brutal verdict last week of the leaders, and I think, it reflects what we're seeing in polling. We had some YouGov polling out on Saturday for the Courier Mail, which showed that both leaders are, David Christodoulou, the opposition leader, is tracking in the wrong direction, and Stephen Miles is tracking in the right direction, but his net approval rating is -10 still, -10, and Christodoulou is +6. So the more they see of the leaders, I suppose, the more they don't really like them. And what's been interesting about the campaign is the primary vote has basically not changed through the whole campaign. It's around 31% for Labor and 41% for the LNP, which leads to about a 55-45 in the two-party preferred, which is pretty well where every opinion poll has had it all year, Laura. So no matter what they offer, like free lunches or crackdown on youth crime, I feel like people have voted in their head. They're waiting for Saturday to just get it done.
McDonald's customers were shocked over the weekend after they were greeted by Donald Trump at the drive-through window of a McDonald's restaurant in Philadelphia.
Everybody. Hey! I'm having a lot of fun here, everybody.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Hello, everybody.
You can take this, right?
Donald Trump immediately got to work swapping his suit jacket for an apron to start his shift.
That's great, thank you. Okay. I think it's good. You want to do it? Yeah.
Donald Trump worked the floor across the entire McDonald's restaurant, from salting fries.
So grab that.
Let me give him extra salt.
No. Yep. Oh, yep, good. Right there. And then we're going to grab the fry scoop right here.
Right.
Put it into there and just give them a twirl that way.
To having a chat with customers at the drive-thru.
I could do this all day. I wouldn't mind this job. I like this job. I think I might come back and do it again.
Thank you.
Look at that.
Mr.
Look at that. How are you?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Nice to see you.
You made it possible for ordinary people like us to meet you.
You're not ordinary.
I mean, thank you so much
You
for
are not
everything you're
ordinary.
doing.
I can see.
We pray for you, and you are the type of person we want to be the president.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So nice. Thank you very much. Yeah, I took a bullet. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
When you think about it, I guess that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And meeting fans desperate to save America.
A lot of fun here, everybody.
Oh my God! Oh my
Look
God!
at all the fake news over there. Hello, everybody.
You can take this,
And
right?
you know this is compliments of Trump, okay?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Mr. President,
Yes.
please don't let the United States become Brazil, my native Brazil.
We'll keep it
Please,
good.
Please, please.
We're going to make it better than ever, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, Mr.
Compliments
President.
of Trump.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you over there.
Oh my God.
Have a good time.
Thank
Nice
you.
to
You
see you.
too.
Bye,
Nice to
darling.
see you.
Have a good time. Thank you.
And it wasn't only the inside of the McDonald's restaurant that was abuzz. Voters in the key battleground state of Philadelphia lined the surrounding streets, waving flags and cheering USA, USA. Despite reveling in the buzz of the day, Donald Trump didn't pass up an opportunity to take swipes at Kamala Harris.
I'm looking for a job, and I've always wanted to work at McDonald's. I never did. I'm running against somebody that said she did, but it turned out to be a totally phony story. So, President Trump! Well, that's a good-looking group. Hello, everybody.
He then made a hilarious quip in response to a reporter's question, saying, "I've now worked for 15 minutes more than Kamala."
I've now worked for 15 minutes more than Kamala.
Are you going to put this on your resume?
She never worked here.
Why would she lie about something like that? Will be put on your resume.
Worked at McDonald's.
Why would she lie about that?
Why? Because she's lying Kamala, that's why.
Donald Trump even had a conciliatory moment with the media pack, where he gave them some French fries.
Go have these. There's plenty of them in there for you, okay? Grab them. You want to move them back? Yeah, you'll
But MSNBC wasn't convinced. Unsurprisingly, the hosts and guests piled on Trump, saying the McDonald's shift was a stunt and that he appears to be unwell.
If you're on his campaign, and I know you are certainly not, I'm not making any implication of that, but what is the logic behind this, going to a McDonald's? I mean, we know the guy likes Big Macs and filet of fish, and he's used the word love to describe the way he feels about the food there before. But what's this about?
There's no logic to it. It's a stunt. He has not put forth an economic agenda. He, as you know, appears to be not well. And he's engaged in some really bizarre types of activities during this campaign. So this is just another one of those stunts that he will continue on through the campaign. And I think that we need to really focus on making sure that he is not elected, of course, because he is a threat to our democracy, but also the Harris-Walsh agenda is about the economy, reducing the cost of living, reducing the cost of prescription drugs, reducing the cost of housing, and making life better for everyone. And that's what we have to focus on and make sure we get every voter to the polls and make sure that the voters vote for the future, not taking the country backwards, as you see what Donald Trump continues to try to do. So I'm urging and encouraging everyone to get to the polls and vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to be their next president and vice president.
Political advisor Stephen Chung slammed MSNBC, saying, MSNBC says working at McDonald's is bizarre and strange. This is how Kamala Harris and the elites think of everyday Americans who work everyday jobs. Social media was in meltdown at the footage, with outspoken conservative commentator Riley Gaines saying, a multi-billionaire is serving at the McDonald's drive-thru window. Hilarious. Truly a man of the people. And commentator Charlie Kirk doubled down on this, saying, Kamala could never. Oh, that's right, she never did. Trump's McDonald's shift comes after he left the audience at the Al Smith dinner in hysterics, reveals Sky News host James Morrow.
On to the fun of US politics. And I tell you what, it's been another awful week for the Kamala Harris campaign. Not only did she flail her way through that Fox News interview with Bret Baier, but she also chickened out of going to the annual Al Smith dinner, a gathering in New York of New York City's most prominent Catholics, where traditionally politicians and presidential candidates give each other a bit of a light-hearted roasting. But she didn't show up, which meant that Donald Trump had the field to himself. And I tell you what, he didn't miss.
Kamala Harris's campaign is in tatters after consecutive weeks of disastrous gaffes, stumbles and mumbles out on the campaign trail. Sky News All-Stars James Morrow, Joe Hildebrand and Danica DiGiorgio take a look at Kamala Harris's latest word salads and ask if she's ruined her chances at election victory forever. Kamala Harris's campaign is going from bad to worse. The presidential hopeful has fumbled several softball interviews over the past fortnight, was demolished during her interview on Fox News a few days ago, and missed the all-important Al Smith dinner, which gave Donald Trump free rein to roast her without a right of reply. Her new strategy of showing her face is backfiring, causing mass panic on the eve of the election, reveals Sky News All-Star James Morrow.
On to the fun of US politics. And I tell you what, it's been another awful week for the Kamala Harris campaign. Not only did she flail her way through that Fox News interview with Bret Baier, but she also chickened out of going to the annual Al Smith dinner, a gathering in New York of New York City's most prominent Catholics, where traditionally politicians and presidential candidates give each other a bit of a light-hearted roasting. But she didn't show up, which meant that Donald Trump had the field to himself. And I tell you what, he didn't miss.
Everyone knew Kamala would struggle in a sit-down interview with Fox News, but no one could anticipate just how badly she would do, reveals Sky News All-Star Joe Siracusa.
How do you rate Kamala Harris's Fox News interview performance, and how important is that interview to this election, do you think?
Well, look, I think she did very poorly. Look, I know all of her supporters said she did a wonderful job. Actually, the body language was quite different. She couldn't answer the questions. She kept going back to her her comments on her nominating speech at the Democratic convention when she was handed the nomination. She did very, very poorly, and I imagine her minders put her on that show thinking, you know, this is the last gasp, and she's running out of oxygen here. I mean...
Sky News host Danica DiGiorgio agrees, saying Kamala bungled the interview.
Look, speaking of eye-rolling, my loser this week, I had to give it to Kamala Harris. Oh. She's one big eye roll altogether. After, you know, I thought maybe, look, her real test came when she did the Fox News interview. I thought, okay, this is the real test. She bungled it. She bungled it. This is my favourite part. Have a look.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't.
I mean, she can't even answer the question. She goes back to these lines, these pre-prepared lines, and she rolls out Donald Trump stuff. She's got no clue.
She hasn't. Look, if she's having a bad hair day, she blames Trump. You know, I mean, Trump, she is so obsessed with that, Matt. She's a psycho, I really believe.
You're right. She's obsessed.
So, honestly, I mean, they manipulated it. They, you know, came late for the interview, gave him only 15 minutes. So, you know, he's been criticised for bullying her. Well, God, he had to get the questions in, and she didn't answer them anyway. Why would you waste your time?
And it's not bullying, it's actually asking hard questions, unlike CNN and the rest of those lefty loonies over at the other channels.
And immediately after Kamala's fumbled Fox interview, she and her team made the foolish decision to skip the Al Smith dinner in New York, which allowed Donald Trump to command the spotlight and double down on criticism of her, reveals Sky News All-Star Steve Price.
I tell you where I wanted to be today. It was the best television I've seen for the last couple of months. Donald Trump. He headlined something I'd never heard of before, which is the Al Smith Memorial Foundation dinner in New York City. Now, it involves prominent politicians from around the country taking the opportunity. It's a Catholic church fundraiser, Joe, so you'd love it. But he was allowed to get up there and have a dig at everybody in the room. And I was sitting there watching Chuck Schumer and the former governor of New York, Michael Bloomberg, sitting there with these stony faces, not wishing to smile or laugh. Have a look at the great Donald here. Have a look at this.
As you may have seen, Kamala did an interview on Fox News yesterday. It went so poorly for her that the Democrats have been forced to install another 100 drop boxes throughout the city. And the upside really is Kamala now sees the benefit of deportation. She wants to deport people. She's vicious. She wants to deport people, and she wants to start by deporting Brett Baer of Fox.
I tell you, he didn't back off at all. Some of the gags that were written were really tasteless. Amanda, Kamala Harris chose not to attend. Good decision, bad decision?
I think it's a bad decision. If you're wanting to lead a country, you're going to have to attend things you like and you don't like. That's just part of the role. And it also shows good sportsmanship to turn up to things that you don't particularly like doing. You know, that's what we expect from our leaders. And it's a missed opportunity for her. If you turn up and you can engage and you can show people that I'm lighthearted, but I can still, you know, be in the same room as my opposition, people would actually respect you for that.
James Morrow agreed, exposing Donald Trump's genius in roasting Kamala Harris.
Naturally, Kamala Harris was the target of much of the routine. Have a look at this.
Campaigning can take a toll on a family and family life, although I hear that Kamala and her husband carve out some really beautiful alone time at the end of the day for an intimate dinner, just Doug, her, and the teleprompter that she uses quite well.
And following Kamala's disastrous week, commentators like Spiked Online chief political reporter Brendan O'Neill are comparing her to her confused predecessor Joe Biden and saying we are doomed if she prevails.
If Kamala Harris wins, we are doomed. America is doomed. and the world is doomed. I don't think the world can survive 4 years of President Harris. I just don't think we'll make it through. You know, she is disastrous. She is, you know, people talk about Biden being on another planet. At least he has the excuse of being old and infirm. What's her excuse? You know, apart from the fact that she seems to drink a lot. But, you know, she often doesn't make sense. She rambles. It's incoherent. We don't quite know what she believes. We don't. She's incapable of explaining to us what her policies would be. I think it's a disaster if she gets into the White House.
And to top off the pile on, Donald Trump has come out more savage and determined than ever to blast Kamala Harris and expose her true colours to the world.
Tell me when you've seen me take even a little bit of a risk. Not only am I'm not even tired. I'm really exhilarated. You know why? We're killing her in the polls because the American people don't want her. She didn't pass her bar exam. She's not a smart person. She's not a person that should represent our country. So I just want to let you know that very clearly.
And Sky News All-Star Joe Hildebrand weighed in, saying Kamala Harris's strategy of showing her face more is only driving people away from her.
Kamala Harris, the more people see of her, the less they like her, and she still seems to be someone staggering around in the middle of this kind of weird word salad, trying to get her hands on an idea or a policy, and she just doesn't have either.
Joe Hildebrand then went on to say Kamala's week from hell has translated into the betting markets, and it's not good news.
The Fox interview happened with Kamala, and ever since, the betting market has just basically taken a plunge for Trump. I think in one he was like 60-40 to win, 61 maybe even.